Hello guys, welcome to the channel. This is Paper Roll. So Arcger have already shared a blog post with us talking about the changes came from the feedback on the beta for Elite specs upcoming with Vision of Eternity. And as usual, I'm mostly interested in Ranger since it's my main, so we are talking about Gale Shot. And I already made videos giving my feedback, giving my build for World vs. World, PvE, discussing the class, how it works, the good, the bad, everything. So Arcger have adjusted some of these concerns and fixed some of the wrongs and left another out of sight. So without further ado, let's talk about what they fixed and what the other problem stayed with the class. So they said Galeshot aimed high and it actually landed over the beta week. And most people liked it, enjoyed it, some people feared it's even too strong. People have different opinions, as you know. But generally I would agree, it's the way it works, the way it's designed was right. The way the Cyclone Bow works, you always have access to it, you still have your other weapons, everything worked fine. The way you get this arrow mechanics, it just worked as intended. The class lagged, however, when it comes to skills, traits, some harmony with it, stuff like that. So they're adjusting few things, especially the weakness that come with some of the skills for the Gale Shot. So without further ado, let's just follow up on what they actually said. So in PvE, they said that most of Gale Shot strengths came from the Grand Master trait Shrike that you basically trigger on multiple arrows. When you hit with 8 projectiles, you would get another arrow, and which is a mechanic that allows you to use the Cyclone Bow, and you will trigger a hit of 3 other projectiles on your targets. So any projectile like longbow, short bow, axe, whatever weapon you're using, once you hit 8 that will hit your enemy, it will trigger the Shrike effect. 3 other projectile hits will not count towards the next Shrike, but you will get an arrow. And it was very decent if you can group up multiple targets and hit multiple hits, it just become very spammy. So I guess it's right that it's most of strings, as they call it, in maybe an open world style, but for pure DPS and other builds, other traits actually competes. So if you go with the Cloud Burst, for example, for the quickness trait, this is how you play quick DPS, like for raids or strikes or whatever. And also you had the other choice of Gale Force for simply a DPS buff to your damage. So basically Shrike was more into playing a projectile focused build. You want to play a true archer or you want to play longbow, stuff like that. It was a trade that obviously made sense. But they say they want to be sure the other styles for playing Gale Shot and the other Grandmaster also become very viable options. So the capability for arrow generation, like we said, 8 hits that will give you another arrow are going to be lowered. They didn't tell us the numbers, so maybe it will be like 10 instead of 8, something like that. And they also make Squall skills, which is a new skills type that offered for the Gale Shot, will actually grant arrow news. They also didn't tell us how much, but I think it probably be 1. That's just my guess. If you use a Squall skill, it will give you 1 arrow. Maybe something like that. And this will help the other Grandmaster traits to stay in parity with each other, while also making arrow generation a more active process. So basically you need arrows, you use a specific skill or have a rotation with that skill in mind. So you simply can do burst after. So let's say you're CCing someone or you're kiting and then turning while using a skill immediately, like immobilize or whatever. Then now you have another arrows or extra arrows so you can use your burst. So it's always in your mind how you use it and which skill you start with and continue. So it feels just rewarding on the skill you use. Which will make you always want to probably put few Squall skills, 1, 2, or however you can put in your build on whatever build you're using. Which I think is a good thing since you playing this elite spec, you don't want to avoid all its new skill, hopefully. But it's also become you have to have a Squall skill in order to get arrows, which is normal. And also the other trait for generating arrows, which is fetch, have been changed or reworked into the thrill of the catch. And now you don't swipe bits, so you get 2 arrows simply like that. So even if your bit's dead and you simply swing for it, you will get arrows. It felt a bit passive, or you forcibly switch bit in order to just get arrows, is obviously a very bad mechanic in PvE to begin with, because you never really want to switch from bit for no reason at all. You already invested boons and stuff on the bit, and you don't want to get a new bit that have nothing and you still build on it, especially like for boon builds, or even with groups that can allow for enough boons to give to your bit. So it's really bad choice, maybe in competitive, but it wasn't a good choice at all in PvE. And even for competitive, if you are building into your bit, like really counting on its damage a little bit, obviously rare that you could build or play a build like this, but still there, making fetch a bad choice. So they changed it into working something like the trait Carnivore for Core Ranger, that when you or your bit CC the enemy, you will get arrows, which is very decent because we have very few rare things that can use the bit for a mechanic that affect you directly. Even Carnivore was a rework, it didn't exist before, so I think this is a very nice addition, especially for like full melee Gale Shot that always have Cyclone Bow as a range option, but to use something like double mace hammer or builds like that if you want to play them. That means you will have a lot of CC, so you can generate a lot of arrows, so when you go to your Cyclone Bow you can use it insanely. And even if you go with a trait like Cloud Burst, when you keep resetting skills, so you keep resetting skill 2 with skill 4 in the Cyclone Bow itself, so you can keep using them and you always have arrows at your fingertips if you need them. So I think it's a decent change, and now have no limit. Like if you want to really build into this arrow thing and you always want to go to your Cyclone Bow having full arrows or even more, you just have to focus on the CC side and play something like that. Even for competitive, like the mace build, like whatever hammer, spear, or even combo from that, you can have something like the Warhorn. You choose bits that actually focus on the CC a lot, so something like Iboga, like Raggaza, even the shark, the sand shark. So it's really good, much better than this. However, it have to give you this interaction thing in the fight, so you can't get the arrows while simply trying to kite, not doing anything or CCing the enemy, but obviously I think this is actually a good change. And it is more active than passive comparing to simply swiping bits. Now there's also made few changes to squall skills. So Whirlwind, for example, which is a skill that have ammunition, it will give you super speed when you use it. It makes you jump in the air while dodging for a small distance with about 600 radius. This skill now, as me and probably other players said, it has to be a stun break. It was competing with something like lightning reflexes. If you compare it to something like a Griffin stance on the Soulbeast, was obviously different functionality, it felt too weak, especially in competitive. So in PvE it have 2 ammunition, in competitive it only have 1. It have a 25-second cooldown for the ammunition and 3 between use. So for competitive it's straight up 25 second, no ammunition. So now it's a stun break. So it's a stun break that you can direct it. You don't have to go backward or use about face if you're not stunned, like lightning reflexes. While stunned, obviously the about face will not work. It will always direct you away from your enemy. But this thing can get you into any direction for 600 radius, and if you put it with the trait that actually supports squall skills, which called Joy of Movement, will make it also remove very movement conditions, which is Immobilize, Chill, and Cripple. So right now it's much better. It's usable. For me, in competitive, and probably even PvE, it was just for fun. It's not really great choice. It doesn't stun break, it simply move you. What was the point even putting this skill instead of putting something to increase your damage, like Signet for Ferocity or an extra skill for hits or whatever other thing? It had no place, whether in PvE or in PvP, honestly, or World vs. World. Now, since it's stun break, it can be your stun break of the build, or even if you use multiple, so it's actually usable. However, they don't say they fixed anything with it. I already explained in the World vs. World video. I will leave the Gale Shot videos in the description if you want to see them, with roaming action using the class, with builds for World vs. World, PvE and everything, and the whole discussion in details and every skill and everything wrong with the class I sort of. But this skill basically will always make you jump up in the air and then it will let you fall down. It doesn't move you in a like half a circle, so it jump until it reaches the ground. No, it makes you move up and then your character fall. And in Guild Wars, there is so many things you cannot do in the air. You cannot leave from some weapons, you cannot cast few skills, you cannot start dodging. There's so many things you cannot do while in the air. Not only that, it had an aftercast. So even if you touch the ground, there is a tiny moment when you can't even put a dodge after it. So if you're using it for a stun break or if you're trying to survive a burst coming toward you, you are dodging, but you have an aftercast, you can be caught right after. If you fight a fast-paced build with a really good player behind the screen, he will kill you in this. You will be caught with another CC immediately. So another problem also that if you are going from a high area to a lower area, you become too high in the air that you have to fall even a longer distance. A longer distance when there is not much you can do about. And if you're going from a lower area to up, like if you're moving uphill instead of downward, you will touch the ground faster, which will be at least more survivable. However, it still has the aftercast, it still will probably move the same way, which make it not really a great choice. Comparing to Lightning Reflex, which is a simple dodge, you can immediately do whatever you want after it and use another dodge immediately. You can even cancel it if you need. Take something that work really similarly for Soulbeast, which is Griffin Stance. You can dodge mid evasion frame of it, cancel it, you can sequence it immediately with it if you're already familiar with the cast time or the duration of it working. So I don't know why Aranit made this thing like that. It need to move you in like a half a circle and you remove the aftercast of it. It would be much better and really enjoyable skill to use. However, at least now it's usable. It was unusable as skill. It was really probably the worst skill in the kit because it will take the position of another skill while being not useful. So this, at least, is a good thing. It's now you can use it, but it's not perfect. Now, Perfect Storm was the elite skill, one of the few choices for damage for Ranger. It's decent, it's a CC, and it's a damage, and it will just keep cleaving everything in the area. It's a whole new mechanic and a way to work really nice that it will take everything in its path, collect them in one tornado, and start damaging everything. So it's a CC, it's damage, it's really nice. However, this skill felt unusable in competitive. In PvE, you might use it, you can afford to be stuck in the ground for a moment and cast it, but in combative, it was really bad to use, and that is the point. You were not able to cast it while moving, so you will have to stick around, cast it, and then start moving again, while the enemy is chasing you, trying to hit you, CC you. It was very difficult to land, and on melee around you, it will always cast like in a line, so someone just got to the side of your character will not be hit by it, which made it quite difficult. Like you almost need to CC the enemy before CCing him again with it, just to make sure you land it, or either with an immobilize or whatever, and then you hit the elite. Or make sure there is a big distance between you and hope for the best that he doesn't see this big thing coming and dodge it. So they fixed the idea of not being able to move, which is great. I hope also that you can cast it like behind you, not just moving, but you always have to face the target. Will be very difficult to use still because you always want to use it while kiting, and you are a glassy, fast-based class that you need to be running around all the time. So I hope it can be cast in any direction, even behind your character. But they don't clarify this. They say, well, you can move. That's it. They didn't say anything about facing your enemy or not. Obviously, it used to face your enemy and stick you on the ground. So now you can move. But can you cast it behind you? And also, it really needed a solution in how it worked in like a line. Like, didn't we learn some skills from this didn't really work, especially the slow cast thing? Like, take staff 4 for Druid or for Ranger in general. It is hard to land. It is annoying skill to land. You really need to have a clear line and hope that the enemy doesn't even walk a little bit to the side or a little bit to the other side. And we have the same problem with this skill in a way. So did they fix it? I would say they fixed it like the third of the problem. A little bit. Like it need at least a bigger radius in how the tornado move. So it's not really a small line until it reaches its destination. But it's much better. Like honestly, the fact that you couldn't move while casting it, you either need to consider in your build a way to separate your enemy from you, like knock back on longbow and immediately cast it after, or immobilize whatever the source, whether from the cyclone bow or from spear or whatever, and then cast this skill. You have to literally prepare for this skill, not simply casting it as a chain of CC or whatever. or normal behavior, or just casting it for pure damage, no, that's not gonna land. Also, Mistral becoming a dome, which is a line that will get your arrows to be iced or chilled, and do an extra damage for every hit, and do chill on the enemy. And then they say in combative mode only, but I think they're talking about Quarry's Pearl and Build. So this is skill 4 on the Cyclone Bow, which is basically change if you take the corresponding trait with it. So if you go with the trait Build, the skill itself change into Build and become using only one arrow, but become ammunition and lose the immobilize. So they say it will grant 2 wind force stacks in either way. It already grant 2 if you don't run the trait, but if you run the trait, you have it on an ammunition, so you can use it twice, but it used to grant you only 1 arrow. But now it will grant 2, so it will get you up to using Hawkeye very fast. So if you want to keep repeating Hawkeye, it will work beautifully with a trait like this, and obviously a lot of people in competitive actually liked it. I, however, probably preferred the access to immobilize, giving me a little bit of control, but with more access to Hawkeye, I'm not sure, maybe it's now a better choice to actually go for. It's basically, you have 2 styles. Do you want to repeatedly giving damage as fast as possible, or if you want to focus on a probably CC style when you have still access to immobilize, and you're probably now gonna run the new fetch trait, which is Thrill of the Catch, which means those CCs will grant you arrows, so you can actually also hit more when your skills come immediately off cooldown, like skill 2, which come pretty fast. So it's 2 styles, whatever fit you more, you'd probably put in your build. Greatly fixed the problem with the auto attack, which really renders this class felt like almost unplayable. When you put an auto attack on the Cyclone Bow and leave it, once you come back to it, the auto attack is gone. You have to keep pressing the auto attack by yourself. It didn't remember the auto attack that you ordered to auto attack practically, like any normal weapon you use. So now they fixed this problem, which obviously was just a problem. It has nothing to do with the class itself. It considered a bug practically. And they also tell us that will be a new bit to work with the trait for avian bits flock together, so we always know that there will be a new bird type to fit the Gale Shot. Now, that get me to the things, like I said, Aranid didn't really fix with the Gale Shot. We already discussed the skills they said they fixed, and how they didn't fix it completely, practically. So, a few things they left that I have, for example, no serious problem with, that skill 5 on the Cyclone Bow also root you in the ground. But I think they wanted it to be like this, so it's a very fast arrow with a long preparation. So once it's out, it almost will always hit you. And it's dazed with high damage, and it's unblockable. So I think that's why Aranit wanted to be not so easy. You can be running and simply cast it behind you or something like that. So they left the skill untouched. It will still stick you on the ground in order to cast it. Think of it like Dragon Hunter Longbow 2, practically. Something similar like that, and how it feel and how it work. Also, they didn't give an indicator to the duration or the look of how the reflect work from the other stun break, which is wind shear. It's knock back every enemy around you and give you a really short reflect, but it doesn't have an effect on you, and you would have to guess it. It doesn't tell you how long the reflect lasts, and I think this is need to be adjusted. The skill work fine. It's a good skill actually, but we need this visual indication as a tooltip change. Like, it's a very small thing. I hope they do it for the skill. Also, that gives me to the problems in how the class work in general, that Aranit obviously seem to be okay with and want the class to work this way, but it is a problem. This is a pure DPS class and can be either played as a classy form of DPS or a quick DPS that shows enemy. On its own, Gale Shot is good. It's really good for damage. It's a good class. It can have access to 3 weapons. It always have access to range. It's very decent. It can really put into DPS and cleave better than most ranger builds, especially with the elite also helping as a damage source and cleave to simply burn through PvE normally. It's really good. It have access to the CCs, immobilize, the fast-based movement, everything. The problem with Gale Shot is that Untamed exists. It's as simple as that. It offered a role that already can almost be fulfilled. So if Untamed didn't exist, probably, let's talk about my build at least. For open world Power Ranger, Untamed Gale Shot would have probably been the best choice. Soulbeast would be too glassy. The fact that you'd have to merge with your bet would make your bet stop tanking for you on glassy builds, like for solo PvE style, trying to solo bounties, stuff like that. You take your bit out of the equation, now you are the target, you're eating the damage or trying to kite until your bit aggro your enemy again, it's a problem. Druid doesn't really work for power, and Core Ranger is Core Ranger. So without Untamed, Gale Shot is the seduction. It's very strong, with repeated sources of access to damage and everything. Does not remove its bit from the equation like Soulbeast, and still can produce an insane level of damage, probably better level of cleave with access to better skills doing this. It's just more comfy to play in a way. Soulbeast would still be probably a really good competitor, but I would have chosen to play Gale Shot, obviously, if I want to play power. Especially that you can play it as a quickness build without investing in quickness from other sources, or trying to get it from traits or sigil or stuff like that, or through multiple layers of copying boons like in Soulbeast. So, like I said, they compete with each other very well, but it's decent. No one outshines the other. However, since Untamed exists, this thing have no role. Like basically, why would you play a DPS build, whether it range or whether it melee or whatever, or a quick DPS build, while you still have Untamed can do exactly the same thing, while being more tanky, have access to more defense sources like the projectile defense from the bit unleash skills, having access to even more layers of survivability through the elite force fortification, reduce damage insanely with access to stability, while Gale Shot doesn't have any access to it, accurate control of bits if you need it, and also boon removal, which in PvE now all mobs and you're trying to solo even bounties, bosses have protection, resistance, stuff like that, and now that will lower your damage significantly, while in Untamed, on a 10-second cooldown only, you can keep removing boons on an AoE. And even if you use the bits that do that, it's still a projectile form, so you can't move boons from mobs that actually have projectile barriers, which we can see a lot in Janthir. Like for rifts and stuff like that, they give themselves boons and they put a barrier almost all the fight you have to be in melee. So there is almost no way to deal with this, and you even have the life steal from the Unleash Ambush with access to the extra skills from it, so even an extra weapon will spend time in, not casting the other skills from other weapons. Like if you spend time in Cyclone Bow, say I have at least 3 weapons. If you spend time in the Cyclone Bow, the other class could be spending time in another weapon and still hitting skills. And even if those skills on cooldown, some weapons have short cooldown, and you still have the Unleash skills for the bit, and you still have the Unleash Ambush and so on as also an extra skill to spend time with. So Untamed have better survivability in general, better control with healing and ability to deal with boons, good damage and cleave like the Axe Unleash Ambush. It's just really, really good. To the point, it doesn't leave anything left for the Gale Shot. They both can play DPS, they both can play quick DPS. That's besides the other builds that Untamed can do and Gale Shot can't, like being a heal Untamed and stuff like that. Which get me to the point, why would I even play Gale Shot? So, will I main Gale Shot in PvE? Not a chance, honestly. Even power builds for Untamed honestly look better. This look fun because it's ranged. If you want to play an Archer, full Archer, it's decent. But even this, Untamed will also compete in it, because if you checked my double bow for Untamed, it's really, really decent in how you want to play it as a full Archer style, because the Untamed can reset the longbow cooldown, and since the cooldown got reduced already to help Gale Shot, it's now become insanely good. While in Gale Shot you can't play a build like that because you don't have the reset for the longbow, so you count on using maybe longbow and cyclone bow and keep switching between them. So it's basically the same thing, while one can still heal without sacrificing marksmanship for better healing or survivability like Carnivore from Wilderness Survival. It can still heal from its lifesteal. It's very tanky and will still have its bit tank for him and whatever. And also get me to an extra problem with the survivability that work in competitive and PvE is that Gale Shot still have no access to stability, no access to protection, no layers of defense whatsoever. It's still too glassy. So basically, it competes with Untamed in PvE and will arguably combative, but I will ignore combative since the different style is already always good enough. If you want to use a specific build, it will be this specific build. But for PvE, it competes with Untamed, and Untamed does almost everything better. Whether it's for defense, for damage, for whatever. It lacks access to survivability. For stability, protection, any damage reduction, comparing to the Untamed, which having the elite force fortification, however the Untamed multiple layers of stability or protection if needed. Even against conditions, only have one cleanse with 2 cleanses on the heal skill, while untamed have like a heal that will stop damage from coming, mutate conditions that will remove all the conditions, stuff like that. So, like I said, Gale Shot it still lack a lot, but Aranit seem to praise it and like it the way it is. And I think it's mechanically or the way it's designed, it works fine, they have a point, but as a general class, you don't simply use a cyclone bow. You want other skills, you want to protect yourself, you want to be able to move, you want to be able to damage. There is so many things goes into playing a spec, and Gale Shot lack a lot when it's come to it. It still work fine and still really acceptable. The problem is since Untamed exists, Gale Shot is completely grey in a way it works. I hope Arianet doesn't even think about nerfing Untamed. Untamed is good as it is, we all love it, it's the best thing happened to Ranger in PvE. It solved all of our problem and took this class to the sky. And I don't wanna see it nerfed just to make Gale Shot playable. If you want to fix Gale Shot or make it better, I hope you can change Gale Shot. Give it sources for stability on stun break. Give it faster even movement speed if you want. Put other layers of defense or something like that. Give it source of stealth. Whatever you want to do with it, do it, but don't nerf Untamed. So that's it for the video. I will leave the other videos in the description discussing everything, the details and my builds for PvE and roaming. If you want to check them out, share your thoughts in the comments, like, share the video with your friends, and I'll be seeing you next time. Peace.